Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization program. This is the program that showcases independent producers, their productions, and provides a forum for discussing issues which affect independent television producers here in the Pacific Northwest.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. My favorite saying. And we did this show last year and we liked it so well, we wanted to do it again. The Portland Roadster Show, which is coming up in March 14th, 15th, and 16th. And so I'm anxious to have our guests get going here. Next to me is Mike Edel. He's president of the Multnomah Hot Rod Council. Next to him is Allison Cook, Miss Oregon, who will be at the show. And next to her is Dwayne Cassidy, producer of the Portland Roadster Show. And when I hear how much work he does on this, I just can't believe it sometimes. So it's really interesting, and I want to find out more about this year's and how it's going to be a little different. Mike, why don't you start a little bit?
Okay, thank you, Dick, and thank you for having us on your program. We're part of the Multnomah Hot Rod Council, who owns the Portland Roadster Show, and this year is our 58th year that we've been putting on the Portland Roadster Show. That's continuous years for 58 years. And we're a nonprofit organization, and our Roadster Show started back in 1956, when then Terry Shrunk, who was Multnomah County Sheriff, who became the mayor of Portland eventually, and Dee Westcott at that time wanted a way to get the kids off the road from drag racing. And so they came up with the organizing the Multnomah Hot Rod Council and the Roadster Show, giving these kids a place to show their cars instead of racing them on the street. And that has been continuous ever since 1956. And we're pretty proud of the history and the relationship of the Multnomah Hot Rod Council and Portland Roadster Show. This year's show is scheduled. It's coming up quickly. It's March 14th, 15th, 16th. It's at the Portland Expo Center. And we moved there about 4 years ago, and we're glad that we did. It's a better venue for the show, and all of our car enthusiasts like it much better. This year's show, I think, is going to be a great show again this year. We've got celebrity guests. We have Miss Oregon. We have the 6 Miss America contestants coming, George Barris, John D'Astino. And we also invited Candy Clark and Cindy Williams from American Graffiti to be part of the show. Now, the American Graffiti ladies just got done celebrating their 40th anniversary of that movie, which to all of us is an icon movie to the car guys. So with that, I think I'll let Dwayne maybe touch on a couple of things on the show. It's a great show scheduled. We got, I think what Dwayne's telling me, we've got the most 20 by 20 full displays we've ever had at a Roadster Show. And probably one of the things that is driving that, we raised our prize money. We raised it to $10,000 for the top prize. And we are equal to anybody in the United States and this country for a top car show now. Dwayne, you want to?
Yeah, I can also add to that with the 6 title holders this year, we're also going to have Katie Harmon's going to show up Saturday at the show. And we'll let this young lady talk about a little bit about that later on in the interview here. So like Mike says, we're 58 years old this year. We are still a full 100% volunteer program, you know. So we're made up of 20 car clubs of the Portland, Vancouver area, which makes up the Multnomah Hot Rod Council, which owns the Portland Roadster Show. And it's pretty amazing that we're still here 58 years later doing our thing. We are in touch with many things because of this show and the things that go on around the state of Oregon throughout the rest of the year in the Vancouver area. But but we're involved in the high school programs. We're very involved in the high school programs because we're hot rodders. We want this to move on and go on in the future, and the only way we can do that is keep the younger generation into it. So we have our high school challenge, which we've got. I can't go into all the high schools because I'll forget somebody, but
Okay.
we got
All right.
people and our people out in the high schools mentoring. We're involved in the skill centers in Vancouver district, Battleground district, and the Clackamas district, and the skill centers, which are made up of many high schools that go into that. So we start out with the high school challenge. Then we also have what we call a pedal car competition going on this year. This is our first year of that, something we thought we would try. We got it going. We got some of the cars donated. Matter of fact, all the cars were donated via some of the clubs versus some industry builders. And these cars, this is how fun this is the instructors and the kids that are involved in this, they're not even letting us know what's going on. They're telling us a little bit, but they don't want us to see what's going on because they don't want the other schools finding out what they're doing to their cars. But I'm telling you, this is a fun project. It's no different than the old guys building a hot rod. The kids are cutting, chopping, modifying, lowering, all of that. And they're going to bring all those cars back to us at the show this year with a painted project. And then at our show, we have the pinstripers come in, and we have a stripe-off deal that is involved. And they're going to take those cars at the show. They're going to finish them up. And then Sunday afternoon, we are going to auction those cars off.
Really?
And all the proceeds will go back to the schools that participated in the pedal car program. 100% goes back to the schools. And it's a fun project to be part of. I'm glad that we got that started. Then we also do the high school challenge part where the kids that have cars that are involved in the automotive programs come in and get involved in this. And what happens with this is our primary thing that we have funded our foundation on is automotive scholarships. So these kids that participate in the Portland Roadster Show have an opportunity to fill out their applications, send in their resume, and be put into the scholarship program that we will issue scholarship out from the proceeds of the Portland Roadster Show funds that. Then we go into the Wagon Angel Project. And the Wagon Angel Project just kind of got started on by accident, but the Wagon Angel Project was something that we got some wagons and we painted them up and we took them in for the stripers to have something to do at the Roadster Show a few years back. And we didn't know what we were going to do with them. We thought we might give them to kids at the show, and it just kind of happened that we got a lady that asked what we were going to do with them, and that's what started this called the Wagon Angel Project. So they go to the sick children that come home from the hospital. We're involved with the Cancer Society here now. And, you know, the way it is nowadays, you know, there's a lot of privacy, but these little guys get these wagons, and it's one of the things they get to take home when they go home from the hospital. So that's where that has come from. And that's a huge project. It just kind of blossomed out over 5 wagons, and now we get the car clubs are buying them, and I'll run into somebody and they'll go, hey, I bought 5 wagons, come and get them. So we don't necessarily get the opportunity to cover them all at the show because it's gotten so big. But like, for an example, right now, the Clackamas Community College program has several of them out there, and they've painted them up, and they're pinstriping them in the college program. They'll be at the show on display, and then the kids will get them after the show. So that's how the Wagon Angel Project started, you know.
Right.
So you've got both colleges, what's Mount Hood, that kind of college?
We got,
The community
we got
college.
all the
college.
community automotive programs are involved in this. Yes, they are.
And high school.
In high school too.
Yeah.
And you know,
Great.
and that kind of goes to a story here that kind of makes sense a little bit. But we have 2 young guys that are in the programs. One's in the college system, and one of them is one of our instructors out at Save and Skill Center that were recipients of the Portland Roadster Show scholarships. So we have kids, you know, we're watching these kids do that, you know, and then like this last year in our mentor program, we had a young man that went from Estacada High School all the way back to nationals in the National Skills Build program, and he was in the top 10 back there. And this all comes from the mentoring part of this thing, and the guys going out and trying to help these schools out and be part of the school system to keep our hobby and our interests alive.
Have you? Could you name some of the high schools? I mean, it isn't just Benson. It used to be just Benson.
No, we got just like right now we have Putnam, Clackamas,
Gresham.
Milwaukee, Gresham, Centennial, David Douglas, Brush Prairie Battleground, the Vancouver Skill Center's involved, the Skill Center in Clackamas is involved,
Aloha.
Aloha High School's involved.
You know, in the paper, there's been headlines about kids not always going to school, shall we say. And I thought maybe they'd be more interested in school if they're involved in things like this.
Yeah, you
It's
know,
just-
it comes back around. You see these kids, you know, and you know, I got kind of an interesting story. You know, my wife and I was downtown Portland here a while back, and there was a bad accident where we were at, and when we came out where we were, the intersection was closed off, and I was just kind of kidding an officer that was standing there, and I asked him if I could make a U-turn, and he told me it was the only free U-turn I would get that day, but I had a Roadster Show sweatshirt on, and he didn't have a clue who I was, and he said, "I want to tell you a story about the Portland Roadster Show," and he told me that he had a son that was kind of headed the wrong direction in life. And a few years back, one of his buddies drug him out to the Portland Roadster Show, and he says that's what turned his son's life around.
Wow.
You know,
Great story.
That's a great story. So we can move on with the show, you know, and there's a lot happening right now because we're only a few weeks away where we start setting up, and that's we're real busy as the producers of this. But we also have, like Mike was saying, our celebrities that come in, like George Barris, you know, and if you guys don't know who George Barris is, he's built all the movie cars, and he's the gentleman that just sold the Batmobile this last year that went across the Barrett-Jackson thing and sold for $4.2 million. You know, he's
The
involved-
original one.
The original one.
Okay.
And we will have we've actually got a couple cars that he's actually had his hands on that will be at the show this year that are coming in. We got John DiAgostino, who's built a lot of the stuff, the Elvis car and that stuff coming back up. And then we have what we call our custom car culture hall. And that's the old traditional style build stuff. And what's kind of exciting for us is this is the younger generation very involved in the car culture deal. And when we looked at this a few years ago, you know, these guys are, it's kids, but the ingenuity that's going into these cars, underneath these cars and that stuff, but they don't paint them the fancy $20,000 plus paint jobs up, you know, they paint them flat black, you know, and that, you know, and some people will use the terminology rat rod. We don't use that anymore. They're traditional rods, you know. You don't want to offend these guys because they got lots of time, effort, and money under these cars. So it's our traditional rod. This is our second year of doing that haul, and it's a very exciting haul. It's fun to see the younger generation be very involved in this thing. And now we're getting applications in, and you know, right across it says we want to be in the car culture hall. You know, so we have one of our clubs is called the Driven Dead out of Portland here, and they kind of sponsor that hall, and they make all the trophies for that hall by hand. The club does that. They round up the cars. They go to all the shows, invite these guys to come, and this is our second year, and we hope this goes on for many, many more years. You know, to keep it going.
It just seems like it just spreads out. Everything,
yes, it does.
And people are so interested. There's so many different things they can get interested in. But mostly with you guys, really, getting the kids involved and all that, that's just fabulous. Just fabulous.
Our Roadster Show is really a family-oriented show. Last year, I think we had 134 vendors. We had over 400 hot rods, and there's something there for anybody and to come and see. Or if you want to learn something about your car or a project you're working on, this is the place to come because the guys that do it are there and they're always willing to answer any questions that you have.
Yes, and if you show up like on Friday afternoon, we open Friday up to all the schools
Right.
Oh, all
to
right.
come in for nothing. We don't charge the children to come in.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I should know this. I don't. 16 and under are free at the show.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But we open it up to all the high schools on Friday. They come in. We do some classes. You know, sometimes I don't want to necessarily call it class, but we get them together. We discuss some things. We find out what we can do in the future to help these guys. You know, we also have what we call the small scale builders. That's the model car guys.
Yeah.
But there's guys just our age that are still building these models, and then very involved in that. That happens at the Roadster Show. This has been going on there now for
Since 70s.
yeah. So that's part of the program too. So it's all about the kids. It's all about the cars, and it's all about the old guys that still refuse to grow up and have to have something shiny, fast, and chrome. You know.
And the model car contest this year,
Oh, that's right.
the small scale folks, they have 150 models that are put together, and the kids are invited in to put these models together. I think it's Saturday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, and they can take them home free. So
I remember.
there'll be folks there to show them how to work the models and put them
Right.
together.
And then we also, like Saturday evening, we have in C Hall, we have a couple of bands coming together. So we're going to do an old traditional sock hop towards the evening this year.
Oh.
With, there's going to be a costume contest with some giveaways for that too.
Yeah, it's-
Where else do you have information about that kind of thing?
We have our website, which
okay.
is www.portlandroadstershow.com.
That's
We're on the PDX Car Culture deal. We're in various magazines. Our produce this show and put it together, we have quite a big media package that we do,
Yeah.
and we get tons of sponsorship for this. If you see the front of our posters, we have a lot of sponsorship for this. We have to thank our sponsors because of them, we're still here and we can produce this show. We can move forward and make the things we do happen. And I can't say enough to our sponsors. So I hope everybody can look at our website, because there's a lot of them to
Right.
name. But but we want to thank Les Schwab, Sunset Auto, Western Automotive Group, Western Buick Kia, Industrial Finishes, Speeds Towing, Fast Specialties, Johnny Law, Bob Lanford Enterprises, and Bushwhackers. There are our major sponsors, and we have many minor sponsors on there too.
okay.
So
That's breathtaking.
yeah.
well, there's something there for everybody at the show.
That's right. That's right. And that just go around and look at the vehicles out there.
And maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about our
Yeah.
own Miss Oregon, who's Allison Cook, who's with us. We've been part of the Miss Oregon program since 2006. The Multnomah Hot Rod Council is a sponsor of the Miss Oregon program,
Okay.
and we're a proud sponsor. It's a program that helps young ladies and provides scholarships, and I think it's just a fantastic program. But we did something this year that we haven't done. It hasn't been done any place in the country, is what I've been told. We've invited the top state title holders for the Northwest.
That's correct.
And that is Miss California, Miss Washington, Miss Idaho, Miss Nevada, Montana, Miss Oregon. So we'll have 6 title holders at our show this year. And we are honored to have Katie Harmon, who is our own Miss America from Oregon and from 2002. So Katie Harmon will be at the show Saturday and Sunday. So these young ladies love to come. They just add, I think, glamour to our show. Allison will probably be talking about it, but all these young ladies have platforms of charity. It's amazing. Once you become a Miss Oregon or a state title holder, you're that title forever, and you're always out there working for charities. And it's amazing what these ladies do. So maybe I'll have Allison talk a little bit about. This is her first year at the Roadster Show,
Yes.
and she's been to other car events during the year. And maybe tell us a little about what you think about the
course.
car guys.
Well, I'd like to rewind a little bit and just say I am so honored and so thankful for all the Multnomah Hot Rod Council has been able to do for me. They sponsor a dollar amount every single month to help me on the road, help me keep going, and make sure that I can get to my volunteerism appearances safely and on time. So Multnomah Hot Rod Council is huge. The fact that we were invited to come to the Portland Roadster Show is even more of an honor. As they stated, there will be 6 of us, including myself. All of us competed at the Miss America competition this year, which was held in September. And all of us are learning a lot about car culture. That was one thing I was very fascinated by. I've always enjoyed cars and, of course, like my vehicle to be safe and sound. But car culture is definitely something that is to be taken away and something to be respected. And one of the things that I've really seen from the few car shows that I've gotten to be a part of is they are open to teaching you quite a bit about the culture. And I'm not afraid of it anymore, truly. It's awesome. What this show is going to do for the Northwest is going to be huge. And I just can't wait to see how it's going to affect my generation, the younger generation, and all the school districts that are here in the Northwest area.
No, great, great. Appreciate that. And we'll be seeing you out there.
Yes,
course.
you will. And I
All
have
right.
to say one more thing. I know we mentioned a couple of the sponsors, but Les Schwab is one of my largest sponsors as well. Not only do they sponsor for your event, they sponsor the Miss America organization through the Miss Oregon Scholarship Program. So you guys have done so much to help keep me safe on the road, and I'm very thankful for all that you've done in my life and also my former title holders' lives as well.
Okay, okay. Well, you even bring some other previous Miss Oregons to the show, is that right? Or?
We have, yes. We since 2006, we've always invited the Miss Oregons.
Okay.
And after when the new Miss Oregon is crowned, we always invite the past ones to come to our show, and they've done that. However, this year is a little bit different, where we're actually bringing in the Northwest 6 state title holders, and we will probably not have any of the previous Miss Oregons there this year, that I know of anyway.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them come just because they enjoy the show. You become a part of the culture, and it's something that's very inviting and exciting.
And they're always
agree.
welcome to come, absolutely.
I agree.
They just add an extra sparkle to our show, and we appreciate that. It really makes it a great family show.
I just wanted to mention, I think you really did a great thing having them put all these pictures from last year's show together so we could have a background right now. And I hope everyone kind of understands that that isn't this year's.
No, that's
It's
all.
last year's.
That's all the 400 cars from last year.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we do actually. We have to thank David Jothan from PDX Car Culture. He shoots all the cars at the show and puts together these DVDs, and also does our awards program. But it's fantastic CD where you can see all the cars and really on a DVD. It's pretty.
That's right.
Pretty good thing to do.
Speaking of the awards, that's. Do you want to talk about them?
We
It's kind of a,
yes, we'd have an awards ceremony at the end of the Roadster Show. It's always on Sunday afternoon, probably around 3 o'clock. And these 6 young ladies will be with us, along with Katie Harmon, and they will help present the awards to all the lucky car winners out there that win a trophy or special awards from the show. And I know they always look forward to that. And being a car person and who's built some cars, the amount of work that you put to the cars, you got to appreciate every car that's out there. And everybody, actually everybody that comes to the show is a winner as far as we're concerned. But we are part of the ISCA, which is the International Show Car Association, and we bring them in to judge our shows.
oh, really?
So it's kind of an independent judging of the shows. We don't have anything to do with it, and they pick all the top award winners for the show. And I'm sure they're going to have a tough time picking that $10,000 top car this year,
Oh,
based on what I'm hearing, some of the cars that are coming to the show.
I know when I've been there, before these are the awards are handed out. The audience just keeps building. It just keeps building. It's like this is where we want to be. We want to see what's going to go on here next, and so they really enjoy it too. And now,
Well, and we love putting on the awards. We try to make it a very class affair. I mean, it's when you've done all this work and recognizing each individual and getting your picture taken with our 6 Miss America state title holders, I think is very nice. And we have some great awards. And trust me, they're beautiful trophies and plaques. And I know Dwayne's been working on those really to come up with something really always special.
We're there. They're all built. They're done. We're ready to hand them out. One of the things I'd like to add to that, by us being one of the ISCA shows, we're linked to 33 other shows across the United States. And what happens to that is you have your A shows, your AAs, and your AAA shows. And these guys that have these top cars are going around the country, and they have to do so many of these shows to get the points. And at the end of the year, they have the final show, and those are the top national cars that will win. That's sponsored by Summit Racing, puts up the money for that. These guys chase these, like I say, all around to do that. So like this year, for example, we have a car coming out of Florida that's coming out here to participate in our show. And that's the way it starts out. And so the series for these guys started several weeks ago, and they started out in California at the Grand Nationals. This weekend is the Sacramento show. There's several shows between us still that we're several weeks away that these guys will go to, and they'll go from like us to Boise back to us to Salt Lake. But they're, and then they have the series final at the end of the year for the big top cars. That's how we get them out here. We're not paying these guys to bring these cars. Oh. They're paying us to get their car put in our show and judged by ISCA.
Okay.
It's not a lot of money. And then we have a reimbursement program where we pay 50 cents a mile up to 500 miles reimbursement. That's not a lot of money to get some guy to drag his car out here from Florida, but it happens. And they're coming from, we touch many of the states every year on these cars. And that's why Mike was saying, with our purse going up, and we're grateful that we have the opportunity to do that this year, that we're bringing a lot of the top-notch cars over the passes versus, well, we don't want to go over the pass because it's snow, we'll go to the other show. Oh, because we're here, they're coming. And it's making my job a lot easier by doing this. We don't have to go so far. But we travel throughout the year. We travel all over to produce this show. It isn't that we just sit here and it comes to us. We have to go to these shows and walk up to these guys, check these cars out, and personally invite them to get them to come to our show. And we're on airplanes a lot, and we're traveling. It's just like Mike and I are leaving tomorrow morning. We're headed to Sacramento in the morning.
Okay.
Going down there for this show to kind of finish up our show. But it's in our hearts. It's part of what we do. We're all car owners. We're not just people that are sitting here. We have cars. Mike has several, and I have a few cars of my own. And we might not have the big top dollar cars, but we're car guys.
Now, some of these people, trailer their cars around the country?
They're trailers
that are
going to
end up in the show.
That's correct.
Okay.
Some of these people have left their homes weeks ago, and they will not go back home till the season's over. We had a couple that came through the series 2 years ago, and their story was kind of interesting, but I seen them at the Spokane show after they were at our show a few weeks later, and she was visiting with my wife, and she said, it's been an experience. She said, I haven't cooked a meal, and I haven't made a bed for 3.5 months.
Oh, wow.
But she says, that they're going to do that, and their story was kind of an interesting story because her husband was a car builder his whole life for everybody else.
Okay.
And when he got done, he had a car and he built it, but he didn't really have the money to travel to do this. And this is kind of a give back. They had 2 sons, and their sons came up to them and handed them 2 credit cards. And the one credit card was to buy the fuel, and the other credit card was to pay for the hotels and get through the thing. This was their give back to their parents. They never dreamed that they would ever have the opportunity to do it. And the ironic thing about that, when we talked to that gentleman that day, he was telling me, he said, we've had fun, but we didn't get enough points to win the series. turns out they won the series for the year in their category and won the points money for their car. So it was a neat story to hear that, you know. It was a neat story for me to hear kids taking care of their parents after their parents took care of them. You know? So
That's
I
right.
hope my kids are listening.
Somehow we'll get this to them.
Yeah,
one way or
there you
the- Okay.
So
I think that's great, and it's better tell it again. This is Portland Roadster Show at the Expo,
This will be at the
middle of
yeah,
March.
at the Expo Center. It's March 14th, 15th, and 16th. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 3-day show, and come on out and see some of the greatest cars in the Northwest and across the country. Actually, I was going to comment on we talk about folks out there trailing their cars around and
Yeah.
showing them. We had a car here a couple years ago, cost $3.5 million to build. That was the
yeah, they're out there. Don't say the names because we don't want the builders to know.
$3.5 million to
okay.
build this car. It was just phenomenal. So that these kind of dollars you can get into these cars, they do have to be towed around in a covered trailer.
Oh yeah, if you've ever built a car with you and your builder, you marry them. You know, they become you're married for the months you build them. You know, and these don't happen overnight.
No,
You know, you get 2, 3, 4, 5 years into some of these cars before they're done, and you give your idea to your builder, he does it. Sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. You guys change it. You know, that's how it kind of goes on. The builders are great to work with though, because you know, in the end, it's the product. You never, it's your idea, your dream with a little bit of their idea, their touch. You know, you go in and you say, I want this, and they look at you and go, what if we do this type of thing? And in the end, you end up with these cars.
Do they use a standard motor? I mean, I can understand all the
Nothing-
exterior.
Nothing's standard in this, you know.
Okay.
You know, and when you're looking at some of the classifications of this, you know, there's a lot of 32, 33, 34 Fords out there, and they're all Chevrolet motors.
Oh,
You know, so so you got the guys that do that, and you got the guys that think that's not right. If it's a Ford, it should be all Ford.
right. Okay.
A lot of this stuff has got, you know, the Jag rear ends are in them. Ford 9-inch rear ends are in many hot rods. You know,
Right.
Okay.
it's nothing. There's nothing that would. I guess the word I want to say. There's no code of conduct here.
Oh, okay.
It's all you start out this way, and 90% of these cars probably never finish what they started because they just go over and beyond, you know. And my opportunity, and I've been blessed being able to be the producer of this show. Never ever dreamed of being the producer of this. It just kind of happened, and here I am today, and I've been honored, you know. And because I'm the producer, I get phone calls, you know, and
Oh,
just
yes.
right here, we can throw our arms up and spin a circle within a 25-mile radius. You think you know what's here? You don't have any idea what's here for cars and what people have in their garages and their collections. It just still amazes me. I'll get a phone call, and I think I've been everywhere, and I go out to these collections. But you'll hear these guys, builders versus the person that's having a car built. You know, I got a gentleman that just finished one up that's going to be debuting at the show, and he said, when I started this and they said it was going to be this much, I told him, oh no, there's never going to be that much. And he says, I'm 3 times over that much to finish the car. And you know, you get so far, you just keep going. You know,
That's
so
right.
it becomes the money pit, I guess.
That's
But
right.
but it's part of the culture. It's part of the glamour, you know. And it's amazing how you can pick this car that's on the poster here, for example. It starts out here, and it gets put in a trailer, and it goes to Idaho to get paint on it. It comes out of Idaho, it goes to Arizona to get interior put in it. It comes out of there, it goes to California to get something else done. They're not just built right here.
They bid it out
They
across
they
the
go
country.
all over the country to be
Right.
finished, you know, and done. And that's part of the thing, you know. these things start out something, and they're cut and they're chopped and they're channeled and they're done, everything's done to them to create these masterpieces, and that's what they are. They're a work of art in the end. You know?
That's right.
But there's also different levels of cars. I mean, there's the $3.5 million car, but there's a lot of average folks who got some beautiful cars that they've actually built themselves in the show.
The guys that are got a shop in their backyard, their garage, the talent that's involved in this is just amazing. Just amazing what's here for the talent. You know.
You give people free reign, it's what you're going to have.
Yeah.
can
You know,
really-
and I personally myself, I have a lot of passion for the guy that's done this himself in his own garage. And you walk in there, and he's got, you know, the perfect coat of paint on it, you know, and everything's done right. And he never done it before, you know. He just kind of started and done it, and made a few mistakes on the way, but figured out how to finish the product, you know.
It's like the high school kids in the high school challenge. I mean, they build those cars themselves.
You know, and that's one of the things that I can look back at years. My grandfather wasn't a car builder, but he was a furniture builder, you know, and one of the things that's always stuck with me that he told me when I was a kid, he says, there's never a mistake. It's always a learning experience. Okay. And that's the way it is.
Right.
That's the way it is with these cars, you know, because you see these guys build one and they'll say, oh no, I'm never going to build another one. But you see it for sale and you see it got something else there, you know. You're driving down the road and you see something and you drag it home, you know, and it becomes this eventually, you know. And,
I remember back in the 70s when we were working on cars. I mean, you'd build a car, go to a show, you bring it home, you add a few more things, you just kind of keep building it along, and eventually it gets to show like the car it's on the poster.
Yeah.
It just takes a little time and effort.
Yep.
Definitely.
Sure does.
Well, and what both of you have said has really applied to just life in general. I like what you were saying about how it's not a mistake, it's just part of the process and part of learning. So much of your culture and what you do just applies to life. And so this isn't just a car show. This is a chance to get involved in the community, get out, see what's around, and really invest in the youth and invest in car culture. And it's so much more than just cars. It really is.
That's true. We invite a lot of charities that come to our show,
Right.
like Dornbeckers, for example.
We're all about the charity. You know, we're about the veterans.
Veteran, yes,
We're about
absolutely.
the charities. We're about a lot of that. You know, we can't say enough about that. You know, it's just like I'll touch a little bit on it, but one of our
go
clubs
ahead.
which Mike and I are both members of, were the Ferals. And the mission for the Ferals, if you guys see this stuff out there, it's MAIP, Missing in America Project.
Oh, yeah.
And that's for every veteran to get a proper burial.
That's right.
Okay, and surprisingly enough, we have thousands of veterans
Right.
that are sitting in funeral homes, sitting in places that nobody's ever claimed their bodies. They're just sitting there, and they were veterans, so there's money to bury them, and it's a big project that started, and it's moving forward every year. We actually here in the state of Oregon got and had some proper burials of some veterans here 2 years ago. It
Right.
started right here, and that's a huge project, and that's a big project, and that's in our hearts on that. I'm a veteran, and to be part of that is a great thing. So we can't put enough of that out there.
Yeah.
And so that is the Ferals' mission. You know, that's what that car club is all about, is doing that, you know. And not only the Portland Roadster Show, you know, I have to back up sometimes and think about it, because the Multnomah Hot Rod Council, like I said, is made up of the 20 car clubs. I push the Portland Roadster Show because I'm the promoter. But with these car clubs, not only with just this, the runs they do, the funds they raise, at all the different things that happen throughout the year, we're just the core of the stem of the mushroom.
Wow.
Because at the end of the year, the charity stuff that's involved in this just goes huge throughout the community, all done for the passion of these cars. And we can't thank that enough, you know. And that's like when we were talking about the young ladies here a few years ago. This all started. We were looking at our program and we realized we weren't doing anything for the young ladies. And but they were at our show. They were part of that. That's how we got involved with the Miss Oregon program and became part of their scholarship thing. Went forward with some of the stuff, just like she said with Les Schwab. They're our big sponsors. We're sitting in meetings with those guys. I said something to them. They took off with it. Now they're a sponsor of the program for these young ladies too. So that it's not just us. It's a conglomeration of things going on all the time and moving around. You know, one of the other things that we're part of, and it's not just us, because that time of year many other groups that aren't involved with us get involved. But we are the steamship for the Legacy Hospital Toy Run now. The Multnomah Hot Rod Council sponsors that run for the Children's Hospital over here, the Legacy Children's Hospital. I'm sorry, Randall's Children's Hospital. I forget they changed the name of that. I apologize, but we do that toy run every year, and it gets bigger every year. You know, and it's a success on that part, you know.
I guess they have one for the Dornbecker.
That's
too. Motorcycle guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're the week. Ours is the second week of December. Theirs is the first week of December.
Yeah. So like I say, we get involved in a lot, you know, just because of that. We're very charity oriented on that. So like we say, the military, you know, the outreach for the suicide prevention program. We've actually had Allison came down and was our spokesman for that this year at that charity. So we're out there every weekend, every week somewhere. And not just us, our groups and the people of our groups are doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, there isn't any one car club here that doesn't do things for charity
It's
all throughout the
wonderful
year.
program.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and what's great is the money from the show helps to go support those different venues. It's not like it's a big ticket show that just ends up in pockets for people. It goes back into the community. The money is going, whether it be to high schools, to hospitals, to charitable organizations such as the Miss Oregon program. It just is amazing. This is not, you know, feeding the man here. This is really investing in our community, and we're so fortunate that we have groups such as yourself who are willing to donate your time and your energy to provide for our communities. And then this is huge.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah.
couldn't have said it better.
And we had I think one of another story that we have, I think, is really special, which kind of is tied to helping somebody, and that's the Brendan Adams story. I think maybe Dwayne kind of started this off a few years ago.
Yeah, that's kind of a touching story.
And it just breaks your heart.
If nobody's familiar, you can look him up. Brendan Adams is from Ellensburg, Washington. He just had his 18th birthday.
Oh.
He has a genetic disorder, and I hope I'm saying it right, where he's growing very rapidly, okay? And he's never going to stop growing. And he's over 8 foot tall now.
He's over 8 feet.
Right.
But talk about a kid that will grab your heart. Oh man, this kid grabs your heart. I met him when he was 15 years old. But 15, 16 years old, that kid can tell you every component of a car, who manufactured the part. He's a car nut from the word go, you know. So some of our buddies from Tri-Cities got involved with him a little bit, brought him to the Roadster Show. We met him there, but when I'm at the show, producing the show, I don't have a lot of time to sit down with people. I'm busy roaming around there making things happen. Some people come to the show and look for me, they don't even see me. But anyway, I had the opportunity to sit down with this young man at the Spokane Roadster Show 2 years ago now, 3 years ago. And just visiting with him, you know, just an awesome kid. And he mentioned to me that one of the things in life that he would like to do is he'd like to meet Chip Foose. Chip Foose has the program on TV called Overhauling.
Yep.
And they're filmed out of LA. I had the opportunity to meet Chip, kind of become friends with him throughout this thing, and he was in Portland for another venue, and I had the opportunity to go sit down with him and have lunch, and we were just in a room visiting there was 4 of us in the room, just guys visiting car stuff, you know, just talking about that. And I remember that conversation with Brendan, and I just, out of the clear blue, I said to Chip, I said, I got this kid. I explained to him, he goes, you know, here's a guy that has a show, you know, big heart, and he says, oh, bring him down, we'll get him on overhauling, you know. And that story just kind of blossoms from there, you know. Well, he's not the producer, though. He's just the guy on the show.
Okay.
But anyway, to make a long story short, I left that thing. There was a car show here in Portland the next day. I said something to my wife, and this thing went viral through the car community. And I had a gentleman the next day that walked up to me. I didn't even know that it was going on. He walked up to me and he stuck a check in my pocket and he says, this is for the Brendan Adams trip. And it just kind of progressed from there. And so we got it set up. We didn't get him on the filming part of it down there yet. But we just met with those guys. We've got some stuff coming up. But we took him on, we don't want to use the word make a wish, but make a dream come
Make a
true
dream,
trip
yeah.
to
Okay.
California this last year. And Mike, myself, a couple other gentlemen, and my youngest daughter were able to go down there with him for the week. And we were with the cast of Overhauling. We took this young man on this whole dream come true week. Not only was it a dream come true for him, John DiAgostino got wind of this. He flew in, met us down there, and we were the key. This thing just kind of turned out to be a key, you know what I'm saying, on things that happened. And if you guys remember here a couple years ago, Jay Leno was here for the Cars in the Park deal, you know, and
Was he here?
he was
Yes.
here. He came down, and
That was fast.
We talked to him.
Mike and I had the opportunity to go down, meet him, and talk with him that night. And one of the things he said that day was, if people come down, we could get in to see his display, you know. And so we got down there, and we had these numbers and different things we tried calling, and the guy goes, "Oh no, you gotta make."
Months in advance.
Months in advance to make that happen. And I said, well, here's what we are. We got this young man with us, you know, and he goes, well, let me see what I can do, you know. So we were actually in the Peterson Museum, which was, if you guys know all about that, was Hot Rod Magazine, his car collection. We actually was in the vault in the basement looking at the cars that the general public don't get to see. You know, Mike and I and our other compadres that were there, we're checking this off bucket list for us too, you know. It just kind of happened. But we got a phone, my cell phone rang, and it was a guy from the thing over there, and he said, well, where are you? And I said, according to our thing, we're like 45 minutes away if the traffic's good. And he said, well, you guys got permission to come and see the collection. And so we got there, and it was a awesome experience, awesome. But we got to go through Jay Leno's entire collection,
Yeah.
and we were there for hours.
Really?
Hours. They talk about open the door,
this
rolling out the red carpet, and giving us a grand tour. It was just the most fabulous thing that could happen. They put us, you know, Brendan's getting pretty crippled up from this deal, and we had rented a big passenger van, and we had a scooter for him, which that's a whole nother story, because nobody wants to rent a scooter to you for an 8-foot kid, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had this scooter, and I said, well, unload it. And this man said, oh, no, you don't need to do that. And he went and got a golf cart, and Brendan crawled on the back, and they went through there and explained every car, every story, the whole thing. Took us through that thing. We were there for hours. So this was kind of, nothing was planned, but it just kind of fell in place to take this kid on this entire deal, you know. Like I say, we were on the Castwood Overhauling. We were in the Peterson Museum. We were in George Barris's deal. It was just a fabulous week to make that kid's life something neat for that kid, you know. And one of the neatest things about the whole trip was Brendan can draw a car and sketch it out, you know, and that's one of the biggest things that Chip can do. You know, he draws those drawings for his show.
Oh.
So they got into a little draw-off on drawing cars.
Really?
And you know, as busy as Chip was, he met us at 6:30 in the morning, I believe it was, the next day.
At the cruise in. Derelict Donut
Derelict
Cruise In.
Donuts Cruise In. And he says, what do you guys got planned for the rest of the day? And we said, well, we got this. He goes, forget your plans. I got some stuff. So we got to go to Mickey Thompson's garage. Saw Mickey Thompson's dragster that Daryl Thompson, his son, just raced
Yeah.
3 weeks ago again, trying to get his dad's title back. We got to go into the big Corvette deal. I'm sorry, I can't remember names right now telling the story.
Corvette
If it's about
restoration.
Corvette, then he would know.
It's a
Yeah,
Corvette
and
restoration
that
shop.
brings up an interesting story. Did you guys see the news today where that Corvette show?
A Corvette down in the sinkhole.
Yeah, it
in
sunk a bunch
Kentucky.
of cars in the sinkhole. Isn't that, what make those guys day? I can't even imagine. But that's how this all comes about, and this is how some of these things happen. We flew that young man down there. We gave him this fabulous week. We got to be part of it, and
Something you'll remember forever.
yeah, you know, and but the problem is these kids grab your heart, you know, and he grabs mine,
And he will be at the show.
and he will be at the show.
And I think you were finishing. He has a graphic talent to draw. It's the same as Foose.
Yeah.
He's got that same talent. It's
He
amazing.
just had his 18th birthday. Awesome kid, you know, awesome kid.
So yeah, come to the Roadster Show and meet Brendan Adams. He is the tallest
Yeah.
teenager in the world in the
I think
Guinness.
he's going to end up being the tallest person. I think I read something. He's going to be right now. He's close to breaking the record.
Yeah.
Oh,
But when you talk to this young man, he's only 18, but you think he's 40. You know, his knowledge and he just knows so much about these cars. It's just amazing.
that's good to have
It's
that.
just
Oh, yeah.
amazing his passion and his love and all of that. You know.
Okay.
So
We're at a point where might want you to sum up a little bit, because we'll maybe 5 minutes or so, something like that, and go over the thing about the Roadster Show, because we never know when people tune in to it. And I hope that everybody that's watching this realizes how neat this is to have the background of last year's show all put together like this, one picture after another. It's just fabulous. Okay, so do you want to go over? That's it. Okay.
Well, the
Not sure how much you can pick it up, but go.
Portland Roadster Show is again coming up just in a few weeks, March 14th, 15th, and 16th at the Portland Expo Center. It opens at 12 o'clock on Friday, goes from 12 to 9. Saturday goes from 10 to 9, and Sunday goes from 10 to 5. And of course, Sunday afternoon we have the award ceremony and just a lot of great things going on all 3 days at the show. And I know these young ladies get to do something special on Saturday night, right?
yes.
Thanks to Les,
Yes,
thanks to Les Schwab Tires. It's amazing.
So the ladies are going to be on the ice with the Winterhawks,
Oh,
and they're going to. I can't tell you the whole program, but
Okay.
they will be on the ice with the Winterhawks on Saturday evening,
all right.
and so you might want to check that out. You know, the other thing that we do have going on that same weekend at the Portland Roadster Show is we have the 3 big halls, and then there's a gun collector show on the other 2 halls. Cars and
that
people
happened
with
last
guns.
time.
Yeah.
It's a great cross deal.
Okay.
If you call the expo, we're the only show that's ever sold more than 100 cross tickets, and we sell 1,400 in a day, you know, on the cross tickets. So they want to be part of our show too. Like we said, this is our 58th year.
Mm-hmm.
We're not new around here. We're old, and we want to hit 100.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think it's also, you know, Ron Tonkin passed away here just recently, and it's like he always said, it's for the love of cars, and that's why we're in it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that we want to give back, keep the tradition going for as long as we can, and pass it on to the next generation, because we love these cars and what they mean, and the things the doors that they really open for a lot of activities.
So important. I mean, you're talking about vehicles, getting around, and everything to
And-
do with cars.
And one of our car clubs we should mention is the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association joined
Yes.
us this last year.
Yes.
Electric cars. So you know,
So we're not even
we're
though
not-
we're the Portland Roadster Show, it's not just roadsters. It's
No.
anything in the car culture. You know, the car community. You know, trust me. You know, us guys that have been around a few years.
Yeah.
You know, we look at these these other cars that some of these kids are into, and we're looking at. I'm sure our grandparents and our fathers thought the same thing of us, you know. But
Yeah.
it's to keep these kids interested and keep them focused on this, you know, to keep them in the program. And I'm telling you, you know, these skill centers and some of these shop teachers we got, they've got these kids' interest, you know, and they're building these things, you know. They're like, we got one of the schools that have actually got a frame and a body and built a little 32 Roadster from the ground up a few years ago. And we got another program that's building a older Volvo this year that's going to come out as a hot rod. You know, it starts right there. And when you talk to these people of the industry, which I got the opportunity to all the time, they love these kids coming out of the skills programs because they'll hire them right out of high school because these
Get a
kids,
job.
you know, and I'm saying that with, when I'm talking about Les Schwab, I'm talking about the tire factory, I'm talking about some of the powder coat guys. They love these kids because they can see that they have the passion and they're becoming very good employees.
Yeah.
You know, so. that's what
Allison,
it is.
would you like to make any?
Yeah.
Well, you said for the love of cars,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to tag on there for the love of the community too. I mean,
a good
I've
point.
kind of reiterated this the whole night. This isn't just a car show. This is about investing in the community, bringing out all types of groups of people. As we said earlier, I have 5 of my sisters, as we call, coming out. We all competed at the Miss America pageant, and our job is to serve the community. And we are honored to partner with you this year and get to be a part of, whether it be the media relations or just meeting. I mean, we're out there to meet people. So come on out, bring the family. As you said earlier, I believe kids 16 and under get in free. So this is a family event. This is bring out the family. There will be vendors, I'm sure, with food, car stuff, apparel. The whole gamut is covered
That's
at this event, and it's going to be a big one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's so many different things that you're involved in. I guess I don't see how you can keep track of all of them. I hope you've got some help somewhere.
We do, actually. It takes 60, takes about 60 volunteers a day
Oh.
to run this show. This is a volunteer organization, nonprofit. So it takes all of the dedication and help that we get from everybody that comes in and help from our car clubs and also for individuals like you, Dick.
Oh,
You
right,
come and volunteer
right.
at our
No,
show.
That's right.
We appreciate that very much.
That's right. I'm sure they'll be there this coming show.
I hope so.
They'll still- everybody will
Either that or
still
just-
show up.
Either that or Dwayne and I are going to be running pretty ragged.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He'll be easier to find if
There you go.
without volunteers.
It's getting easier every year because we're getting better at it all the time. You know, we're
Oh, yeah.
ourselves. We're getting better. We got computers now. We got programs. You know, one of the blessings this year is the expo has Wi-Fi. That's going to make our jobs a lot easier.
Okay.
Because people don't realize, you know, the public has no clue what goes on to produce one of these. You know,
No,
even the
no.
participants that show up have no clue what's
No.
going on in the back rooms. And all the people that are back there putting hours in all night long to make these cars come together so we can have that program that's playing in the background, you know, for the next day at the award ceremony, married up with all the cars and that. It's just amazing. And that's one of the things that we're going to try to do this year is I want our photography people to film all the people that don't get recognized. Like I
Okay.
say, because they show up and I can't thank them enough, you know. I mean, I'm the loudmouth, I'm the voice out front, but behind me there's a lot of people that don't get seen, you know what I'm saying? And
Also, we might mention, or Dwayne might mention, Dwayne is working on our 60th anniversary show.
That's
In
true.
2 years. We'll be 60 years old and we're going to celebrate. And so Dwayne's been working on that show behind the scenes, and as things develop, I think it's going to be a pretty awesome show. And
I'm hoping that
2
we
more
can
years.
put it off the map. You
Okay.
know, just, you know, so.
I want to thank my 3 guests here. Next to me, Mike Edel, President, Multnomah Hot Rod Council. Then Miss Oregon, Allison Cook, and Dwayne Cassidy, producer of the Portland Roadster Show. I want to thank you very much. Of course, I want to thank our crew also. We're going to put up a screen now with the showing times on the when this will be replayed. And so if you can go ahead and do that. Cool.
You are watching the Independent Producers Organization program. This program replays on these channels, at these times, and on these days. Write it down and tell your friends.
Okay, welcome back to the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. And this time we're just going to talk to Miss Oregon about what herself and what she does. And I think I'll just go ahead and start with just talking about you. And I'll try to remember if I have any questions or anything, but mostly I know everything about how you go about winning and competing and all that. I'd love to hear about that.
Sounds great. Well, hello everyone. If you're just tuning in, my name is Allison Cook and I'm the current Miss Oregon 2013. The Miss America and Miss Oregon program has been around for years. I believe I'm the 67th Miss Oregon. And basically our job is titled as the official hostess of the state. And so I am brought on to do different volunteer appearances, to be involved with small businesses, talking in our public school and private school systems here without the state. And I'll just kind of start with my personal journey and kind of how the whole Miss America program works. My personal journey, I've been involved in the Miss America system for about 2 years now. The way that the Miss America program works is you have to win a local title and then carry on to win a state title to compete at nationals. I'm from Southern Oregon, and so I competed for the Miss Klamath County Miss City of Sunshine Scholarship Pageant. And I won a title there. I went on the year after to take fourth runner-up at the Miss Oregon pageant, decided to compete again, and then this year won a title known as Miss Southern Gem, which represents the 11 southern counties of Oregon, and then moved on to win Miss Oregon. As far as a little background on the Miss America program, the Miss America program is the largest provider of scholarships for women in the nation. They provide hundreds of thousands of dollars to students just like myself, or giving women other opportunities to go to school and further their education that they may have never thought possible. We wear a crown, as you can see on my head here, and it has 4 points. And for the Miss America organization, our 4 points are style, scholarship, success, and service. So from our local title holder level all the way up, wearing a crown means that you have worked hard to be a representation of all of those points to the general public. And so every day I put my crown on and I do my best to serve my community in the ability that I know how.
I want to interrupt because I need to introduce our co-host, Jim
right.
Lockhart.
I'm sorry, of course.
I
All right.
get too excited maybe about some of this stuff.
Oh, this isn't
Now-
about me anyway. So
That's right, and not about either one of us. And so I want to go back to you to maybe talk about, well, you probably had more to say about that, but I'd like to hear about some of the places you have to go and things like that.
Oh, yes. Well, we travel all over the state, as well as when we compete for the national competition. National competition Miss America this year was in September and held in Atlantic City, New Jersey. A little bit of background on that. Miss America organization and pageant started as a bathing beauties competition. It was started over 93 years ago, I believe, and it was to extend tourism in Atlantic City, New Jersey. A few years ago, they decided to move it to Las Vegas to help boost some ratings, and this year decided to be the iconic returning year to Atlantic City. And so they brought all 53 Miss America contestants back over to that side, and I got to experience the East Coast. It was much different than here, but a great experience. Another one of the places I traveled was Florida for the Outstanding Teen Competition. So not only is Miss America competition and Miss America organization for young women, it's also for teenagers as well. And so Miss Oregon's Outstanding Teen, Harley Emery, is a student at Thurston High School, and she represented our state back in Florida at the national competition, which also provides scholarships for women. So those are my two larger traveling trips that I've been able to take, but I travel truly everywhere in Oregon. I'll go over to the coastal side, hitting Seaside, Coos Bay. Like I said, I'm from Southern Oregon, so I'll go to Klamath Falls, Medford area quite frequently. And then everywhere in between, I've hit Bend, Redmond, Eugene, Springfield, Salem, Albany.
Do they invite you to come to the schools or some of those
A
things?
combination. One of my favorite things to do is present to the schools, and so I
Okay.
love making presentations at all levels, whether it be elementary all the way up through high school. I've had the honors, to present to some colleges as well. And really, I'm excited for any volunteer opportunities or speaking engagements that might come about.
Wow, okay.
you know, you mentioned that they must to be in the contest for Miss Oregon, you needed to win something at the local level.
Yes.
Now, what exactly does that mean, and what are some examples of some of these local contests?
So the local competitions are very much the same as the national level. So as far as phases of competition, there's talent, there's a behind-the-scenes interview, there's onstage question, evening gown, and lifestyle and fitness. So as far as a competition standpoint, those are all factors of the competition. Now, as far as some qualifications and eligibility to compete, in the Miss program, you could be ages 17 through 24. You have to be a natural-born female, and you can never have been pregnant or married. Besides that, if you're interested in the teen competition, it is ages 13 through 17. And the reason that 17 is the magic number is that depends on your high school level. You can be a senior in high school and can compete for the Miss, or you could be a junior in high school and compete for the teen. As far as different local organizations, this jumping off point really is at the county level. So counties across the state will host a Miss pageant, and then that would be how you would win to go to the state level. As far as the northern area, Miss Washington County is coming up with their pageant. They're offering 2 titles, and that will be at the end of this month. There are also regional areas, like my title last year, Miss Southern Gem, represented the 11 southern counties of Oregon. And there's also what they call an open pageant. So if you competed in your local and didn't win, or for some reason are not eligible in your county area, you can compete at a regional or statewide level. Basically, the whole point is to get kids interested in volunteering, getting young women interested in furthering their education, and doing so at the local and county level all across the state of Oregon and in other states. I mean, every state is based the same way.
Wow.
I had no idea how it was set up.
I just got to make a comment. Our last show, last month, was Teen Idol. Was it Portland Teen Idol? Maybe that's what it was.
remember.
It was Dennis Gleason,
Right, yes, and he brought
Darkwing
in...
Productions, and he came over. He took on the first hour, interviewing the 2 ladies that had been winners. Then you did the second hour, and I didn't do anything.
Right, right.
So that was okay. So I just wanted to mention that. I guess he seemed to know about all the different contests. There's others there's other ones to do with even Miss Oregon. Of course, there's Mrs. Oregon.
Are they all geographical?
Well, it's all different systems. So I'm a part of the Miss America organization, and I keep going back to scholarships, but that's our main claim to fame, is we're trying to get education as a forefront in the minds of young women. There are other organizations. Donald Trump runs the Miss USA program, so there's an Oregon USA title.
Okay.
Mrs. Oregon is also a different program, but there are tons and tons of pageants if people are interested. The main thing that sets the Miss America organization apart, besides scholarships, is we have a talent portion. And so my personal talent was playing the electroacoustic violin.
Yes,
I played the Black Eyed Peas, Let's Get It Started. But talents could vary from reading a monologue to doing a dance. I've seen some girls dribble a soccer ball. I mean, really, you could be talented in so many different ways. I just happen to be musically inclined.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yes, I have your picture of the
Yes.
What'd you call it? Not a violin, or?
Well, so I call it electroacoustic because I actually have a pickup on my violin.
Okay.
So I get to play through a wireless microphone system, and I could play everything. I could do distortion pedals, I could do chorus pedals for any of the music junkies out there. I could have the reverb and all these different things, just like any rock band. And so it's made me go from just your classical, fiddle, contemporary, and really bring it into the new age.
Yeah, that sounds like what happened to it. That's great. Okay. Did you have anything more? Otherwise, I'd move into this thing about concussion that we had talked about and your efforts. Why don't you cover what you do on that?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
So one of the things as a state title holder, as a local title holder, or anyone who is competing in the Miss America organization, they have you pick what they call a platform. And this platform is really an area of volunteerism that you would like to focus your year on. And once I was crowned my first local title, I decided to go with concussions. I started with just athletic concussion awareness.
Which is really in the news a lot for football.
Really in the
Yeah.
news a lot. The reason I chose that platform of volunteerism, I'm a student athlete and I've suffered over 4 concussions. And so this really hits home, literally hits home, my home, right here in my brain.
Right.
But concussions are such a hot topic issue. I cannot prevent a concussion, but a lot of my efforts involve on advocacy and awareness. And so I've suffered multiple symptoms that have been ongoing. I've had headaches every day and a
Really?
whole list of other things, light sensitivity, memory issues, nausea. I mean, concussions are not just the initial impact. They go so much more than that.
They go on.
And as far as a couple of statistics, it is generalized to say that one will not know the full effects of their injury until after 30 years. So my personal life, that would put me in my 40s, 50s, when I'm hopefully a wife and I have children. And it's very hard for someone in my generation who is so used to immediate gratification, who is used to seeing the results so quickly, whether it be through technology or through personal experience, to think as far as 30 years down the line and not really know what I've done to myself is a very difficult concept to grasp. Another statistic on concussions, girls have a 40% higher chance of getting concussions than men do, or boys do. One of the reasons that is because of upper body strength and neck strength. Men tend, as a very generalized stereotype, of course, men tend to have more upper body strength, whether it be from physical activity or spending more time in the weight room, whereas women tend to be much more fragile. And so one of the ways that I encourage women to help combat this issue is to work on upper body strength and neck strength so that those muscles can help counteract any blow that they might receive to the head. You also have a 2-time greater chance of receiving a concussion once you've received one. So they're a compounding issue, hence why I've had 4 concussions. And with this compounding issue, you will not know the extent of damage that each individual concussion has. They just all kind of jumble up into this mess.
The aggregate of them.
Yes, truly. And
Do you get kind of boxer? Can they hit and do boxers get the same concussions?
Probably even worse than football.
Yeah, we always think of it as football because it comes in from every direction, I think, on football. But a boxer is the guy looking right at you and hitting your side. Does that sound like anything that you may have heard about? Or
Well, I mean, with any athletic ability,
Yeah.
especially in a case such as boxing, where someone is truly targeting at your head,
Right.
there are issues with that. I would not encourage it. However, I know that they practice much more upper body strength. They do have defense mechanisms that they have taught themselves, but I can only imagine the extent of the brain damage that someone like a boxer would have to go through. One of the things that I've learned through personal experience is you do not have to receive a direct blow to get a concussion.
Right.
And I'll rewind a little bit here. If someone doesn't know, a concussion is where your brain hits the inside of your skull and swells. There can be varying degrees of this, whether it be getting your bell rung, as a common term was, especially with the older generation. It could be blacking out or losing consciousness. It could just be a headache. And for some people, it's a direct vomiting. They just vomit right away, and that's that. My experience when I'm talking about you don't have to receive a direct blow, I'll share a story. For my 4th concussion, I'm a collegiate volleyball player at Oregon Tech in Klamath Falls.
Okay.
And I was warming up with my team, and I was playing in the back row. Now, I don't usually play in the back row. I'm quite tall, so it was a little bit out of my element. But one of my teammates happened to pass the ball, and it goes right off her platform, and it hit off wrong, and it was coming towards my head. So, of course, this is in slow motion. I see the ball coming towards my face. I whip my head back, and then the ball hits me in the face. So it wasn't that ball hitting me in the face that gave me the concussion. It was the action of me whipping my head back that gave me the concussion. And then, of course, I got hit in the face, and that was embarrassing enough as it was. But it
So
just,
what you're saying is that your brain slammed against the back of your head, which is probably what happens a lot in auto accidents.
yes, and that's why
yes.
when I moved to the national level, I expanded my platform. So I moved from athletic concussion awareness to a general brain injury awareness. That encompasses car accident victims. That also ties in very nicely with our military servicemen and our veterans. So many of them, whether it be through a sound going off or a direct impact or even a jarring of the head, they suffer traumatic brain injuries just
right.
as much as athletes do. And I think that's something that, as a general population, we need to focus more on to get them adequate treatment just with the athletes.
Well, so you say you took this on, this issue or this advocacy on for a year. What all did that entail?
Well, I've been volunteering on the aspect of concussions for a little over 2 years now, and I started with wanting to find a nonprofit organization who had the same interests as I did. And I stumbled upon an organization. It's called Brain Champions.
Oh, yeah.
They have a website, www.brainchampions.org. It's an Oregon-based organization, nonprofit. They're very small, but they work on building a community for athletes once they have sustained a concussion. They also provide different pamphlets, presentation tools, and lots of rules and regulations specifically in the state of Oregon about concussions. Like I said, they're very small. There's no true organization that I have come across that really has a community base for concussion sufferers or people who want to advocate on the side of concussions. And so brainchampions.org, we focus a lot on using social media to combat and building online forums and different communities for awareness. We have a chapter specifically for women called Atalanta's Pride. And so Atalanta was a Greek goddess, and it truly is A-T-A, Atalanta.
Okay.
And she beat all the boys when she was competing. And we chose her as sort of a mascot or a champion for this sector of the organization because women are just as strong, if not more strong, and can sometimes be overlooked in the world of concussions. Like we said earlier, they focus so much on football and they focus so much on a lot of these contact sports, but girls soccer, girls lacrosse, and girls basketball are just as high up on the list for concussion sufferers.
Yeah, that's right.
So as far as my involvement in my advocacy, I'm a founding member of that Atalanta's Pride group. I'm also one of the founding members and the Southern Oregon chapter representative for brainchampions.org. And we use a lot of the information put off by the CDC, Center for Disease Control. They have a Heads Up Concussion Awareness Program. And that is also public information. There's also the Brain Injury Alliance of America has an Oregon chapter, and so we use some of their literature and information as well. We've been working, I don't know if, as far as Oregon concussion laws, there was Max's Law, and there's also a recently amended Jenna's Law. And basically, as a very paraphrased version, Max's Law is if a child student athlete sustains a suspected concussion during a school-sponsored athletic event, they must be removed from play and then have to be cleared with doctor's note to return to play. Jenna's Law kind of expands on that and expands it over to club sports, and it goes from high school level as well as through college level. And so that's, as far as laws, what Oregon has to protect, and I work a lot on making sure those laws get enforced. It's always tougher. You can have a law, but there's no one really checking to make sure that the students are being taken care of.
So I take it from what you're saying that a lot of those laws are because you don't always know you had a concussion.
Correct. And a lot of the responsibility falls on parents, falls on coaches, falls on refereeing associations. I'm actually a youth basketball referee, and so all of the Oregon organizations require the referees and the coaches now to watch an informational video about concussions. And as a referee, we are supposed to recommend to the coach to remove the student with an issue. Like I said, this is all very much athletic based, but this should apply to car accident victims as well. If you get in a car accident, you need to seek medical attention so that you can have appropriate treatment. And this applies to our veterans as well.
I think doctors can only do so much. I mean, they can't see what's going on. When you get a cut, they can, I can fix that. But you start talking about your head
Right.
and what's going on inside with how it's been moved. What you're saying, brain moving against the skull, and that's heavy stuff.
Right. Now, that's one of the things actually that I use in my school presentations all the time, and it's going to sound very cheesy. When you break your arm, you can see it. You can see usually where the laceration is, you can see the bones, and then they'll cast it, and you can start to feel when it's better, and you can visually have this reminder. And then all of a sudden, when they remove the cast, you could see that the arm was usually disfigured a bit, and you take the time to maneuver it and make sure that it's rehabilitated and taken care of. With your brain, we don't have that luxury. With your brain, of course, it should be encapsulated in your skull, hopefully, if everything's going right. And you can't physically see it. You don't have that reminder of, oh, I'm still broken, or oh, I'm still hurting. It's very easy to overlook what type of injury has happened and move on with your life. And so Oregon Concussion and Management Program has a 4-step plan that I'd like to address that falls along those lines. It's called Recognize, Remove, Refer, and Return. And this can be applied in all aspects of life to do with brain injuries. First is recognize. Recognize that there was either a blow or a fall or some type of an issue. Then move on to remove. Removing yourself from this situation is very important, whether it be an athletic event, whether it be a car accident. It's important to remove yourself from the situation. Referral is the biggest step, I think. Referring to a doctor or licensed physician to be able to provide you the adequate care. A lot of times they will recommend an adequate resting period, and that is huge, especially when you cannot see what's going on and the repairs that are being made to your brain. It's important just to rest, just to take that time. And they usually recommend between 2 to 4 weeks, if not longer. I've had some, excuse me, that have recommended over a 2-month waiting period before I return to strenuous activity.
And is that just to make sure that during that time, it takes that much time sometimes to show symptoms?
Not necessarily showing symptoms, but when your brain is swollen, it takes time for the swelling to go down.
That's right.
And if you want to get into anatomy and physiology, your brain stem controls most of the centers for your body, whether it be your breathing centers, your sleeping centers, your eating patterns. When your brain swells, your brain stem goes through the bottom of your skull. And it can affect all of those different centers. Well, the goal, of course, is to make sure that those centers can go back to normal or as back to normal as possible. So making sure you rest to make sure that swelling goes down would at least help in the process of making sure you can get as back to normal as possible.
So people that have a concussion, they probably don't realize how important it is for them to get some rest. And
Right. It is a very difficult line to cross. Something that I've come across in my personal career is whether it be scholarships or a will to win or a huge part of this. And this is something that crosses into what you were saying earlier with the NFL. When you start throwing in payment and when you throw in the job and the obligation, it's very hard for someone to say, pro football player, for example,
right, yeah.
Their salary is based on their performance and their play. So for a doctor to say, oh, well, you're going to have to take the next 2 months off, that usually doesn't reflect well as far as their job performance. And so my hope and my advocacy efforts are that the people who are involved, whether it be football or these different entities, that they will keep the athlete in the forefront of their mind. A brain, we have not successfully, to my knowledge, found a brain transplant. We can transplant or fix any other part of the body. We could even do hearts. But your brain, lungs even, correct. But your brain, you only get one. You truly only get one, and it's important that we remind ourselves and as a community really realize that your brain is above any other issue. Your brain should be at the forefront regardless of what scholarships you might risk, regardless of your job. I mean, heck, they could even go get another job if it was that big of an issue, but you only have one brain. So it's important to take care of it to the best of your ability.
You know, you talked about
question.
those 4 R's, you know, what were they again?
Recognize, remove, refer, and return.
Did we touch the return?
We didn't hit return yet. Well, that's an
okay.
important one. Well, after,
I wasn't sure, but I thought
No, I'm glad you brought it up. So after seeking medical advice and seeking professionals, and after taking that adequate resting period, you can return. and whether that be going back to athletic events, whether that be going back to work, some people have to miss work for their concussion. Just because you've had a brain injury, it will affect your life, but some people can return to normal activities with no issues. And it's really, as I keep saying, it's about the awareness. I cannot claim to prevent a concussion, but I can give you steps to help you through that difficult time.
Well, as you say, return, it's an important part of it, but at the same time, didn't you say that the damage done by concussions is cumulative?
It is cumulative. So when you return, I would suggest that you return with an open mind and with health and safety at the forefront. I did decide to return to sports after my third concussion, and my third concussion was a very, very difficult one. I lost vision for over 15 minutes. When I started exercising again, my heart rate would get up to over 235 beats a minute.
It should be about 65 when you're at rest.
At rest and exercising, I'd say it would even be healthy to get up to 140 if you're exercising hard. But as a high schooler who should be at the peak of health, getting up to 235 beats a minute is not okay. So yes, as you said, returning with your brain health on the forefront, some of the things that I did to help get back into shape was what I had talked about earlier. It was focusing on neck strength, focusing on upper body strength, and I'm happy to say that in November I celebrated 2 years concussion-free. And kind of a silly celebration. It's one way to put it, but for me it was a really big deal, and it was making my safety at the forefront and really hoping others will hear my story. And I don't want other people to have to go through what I've gone through. They say that I have chronic daily headaches. They're as bad as a headache could be without being a migraine every day. They've also diagnosed me with post-concussive disorder, and that's just a very broad term, but it's basically what they have deemed all of these different symptoms that I'm having and attributing them to my brain injuries. A lot of what we are seeing, whether it be with our military veterans or with our NFL players, they have a lot of their brain injuries compounding into emotional disorders. So then there's a possibility that someone can become depressed and become suicidal in some cases with the NFL. They've exemplified some of those cases, as well as they're starting a new diagnosis, what they call chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE.
Okay.
And they've started to publicize this a bit. It was more of a hot topic item back last summer. But it's basically a diagnosis that encompasses repeated brain injuries, and it's a broad term of what happens. They're saying that it might lead to Alzheimer's, and like I said, a lot of emotional disorders.
Oh, that's right.
So just as you said, returning, but making sure that you keep brain health and brain safety on the forefront.
You're actually exposed probably to a lot of things if you've got damage up here. It just
Well, it's a central processing unit, so
Yeah,
to speak, of
that's
our,
right.
of our existence, so it can have repercussions in a lot of different areas, I would think.
Well, and a lot of things that people take for granted, I think. Having attention and concentration. There are times that I had the attention of a gnat. I mean, truly, you could not have the willpower and the brain power just to focus on something. Light sensitivity is something I mentioned before, but it is a huge issue. I'm sitting here under bright lights, and if they flicked them on and off, I wouldn't be very happy. It can affect your eyes and your vision, like it can affect your appetite, your sleeping centers. I became an insomniac for a couple of months. Another big facet that I don't think is discussed very often is it can affect hormonal issues, whether it be male or female. So especially for our student athletes who are in those very formative stages of growth and development, a brain injury can impact so much more than just your brain.
Oh, I think it can create seizures as well.
Yes. Yes, I've been fortunate not to have to undergo that, but I know many people who have had seizures as a result or daily migraines. I mean, even a speech impediment and speech issues.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if you look on the internet, for example, you can find just lists and lists of different symptoms that people will attribute to a brain injury.
And you think about brain injury, what comes to my mind is in Hollywood, Rocky. With his fourth movie, he was just a mess. He could even hardly talk. But then actually, then you think about in the real world, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
and he underwent severe head trauma, and of course he got Parkinson's, which really made it much worse. But he had some serious issues with it, where he, speaking and all that, and it happened years after he was how many years? But it happened after he got out of the ring. It seemed to me. So
Right.
you really don't know. It may not be like you that can happen as it happens. It could take place later on.
Right. I mean, like I said, I could be in my late 40s and be completely blind. And that's just something, you pray for the best, but you never truly know. And that's why, like I said earlier, I can't claim to prevent a concussion. What I do with my advocacy and awareness is to make people truly aware of the issue at hand and try to combat it before it becomes such a severe issue.
Is there something, thoughts you might have, to do with kids, high school kids also, and whether or not they should be playing? Are people trying to stop a lot of that because of the concussion, or are they still let them keep playing?
In high school.
In high school, is that something? I mean, there's still football. They still have football. So.
There is. Now I have to say, someone who, as I did, who grew up in sports, I learned so many more life experiences from sports than just playing the game.
Yeah.
You learn to respect authority. You learn to work as a team. You learn to motivate yourself so that you can motivate others. And I truly think that those characteristics are still a part of youth sports and youth involvement. I have seen them start to modify or change different rules. At the Pop Warner level, for example, they're no longer teaching children to hit with their heads. They're focusing quite a bit more to hit with their shoulder. I think as parents become more aware and as coaches become more aware, more changes will be made. Technology has been a huge part of the whole concussion movement, and I'd like to touch on one thing in particular. It's called impact testing, impact baseline testing, and this is something that is required at the high school levels all across the state. But basically, it is a cognitive function test that a student athlete will take before they have a concussion. So it's a test that's based on various shapes, colors, word recognition, and it will provide a baseline for when they get a concussion. So in my case, for example, I took it once when I started my college volleyball career. I got a concussion about 3 months later and retook that same test. My athletic trainer then used the two tests and compared the results to have a very general measure of the cognitive function loss that I had. As I started my rehabilitation process, I took the test multiple times to then keep comparing my results. And I felt comfortable returning to activity when my results had met my standards of my first test.
Was this a volunteer thing, or do they do that to anybody that's involved in a concussion possible sports?
This is required now
Required.
statewide at the high school and collegiate level. This, however, does not encompass cheer or dance. We are trying to get them, since they are not declared as a sport under regulations, we are trying to get them recognized so that they could have the benefits of this. But cheerleaders and dancers get just as many concussions as someone from football.
Cheerleaders being thrown 20 feet in the
Right,
air.
right. So it is something that is used mainly in sports that people would recognize, but cross country is something that would be included on this.
Skiing.
Well, I haven't had experience with skiing, but I would love to see them included.
Okay.
But basically, it's a test that everyone takes, and you pray that you will never have to use it or take it again. But if so, it provides that quantitative and qualitative measure so that you can help along the rehabilitation process.
You know, I think the bottom line is you just have to keep going out and playing basketball, football, hockey, everything, because you just can't sit in the corner. You just have to do something. And yes, then these accidents are going to happen.
But they have to try to make it as safe as possible.
You got to try to make it minimize
Yes, you
it.
do have to try
Absolutely.
to minimize it, but in the grand scheme of life, you could be walking down the road and get hit with a brick.
That's right.
I mean, if people sat around all day and were afraid of the different accidents that would happen, there'd be no progress made. So I, by no means, am advocating cutting sports or cutting any of these entities. They were such a huge part of my life. It gave me an identity. It gave me something to work for, and it really drove me to be successful in other areas of my life. Like you said, though, I do think that we need to do our best to keep safety at the forefront and make sure that kids are getting active, but in a safe way.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I forget what those 4 R's were, but the first one was
We got recognize.
recognize. Well, that's it. It should also be, awareness. People need to be aware. I mean, up until just recently, I don't think people even thought about it, even talked about it.
No, and I don't think they attributed as many issues to concussions as they do now. If you talk
more.
to football players or even older gentlemen who played sports in their older days, they talk about, oh man, maybe that might be my memory issue. They're starting to attribute a lot of these things that we used to classify as just old age. I think it could be now
Okay.
lumped in with concussions
Okay.
and with the impact they may have in their youth.
Oh, there's so many sports, we were talking about at the very beginning. I also thought about hockey is one we haven't talked about, and that's incredibly abusive. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
like here in Portland, we got the Bay City Rollers or whatever.
Yes, our roller
the
derby
roller
team.
derby. Now, that's all about squashing your opponent.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
that's got to be some serious issues with concussions in that. And I imagine we kept talking about it. We could keep coming up with more and more. Right. So our interfacing with the potential for that is enormous in just everyday life, let alone with sports.
Right. Well, and I think that's also where technology comes into play. I mean, helmets are becoming of better construction. I was fortunate enough to find a concussion prevention headband. And it was a neoprene and foam headband that I wore just across my brow.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to help disperse the impact of any direct blow that I might have received for sports. You'll see a lot of soccer players wearing it for the headers that they do. But basically, if a ball was to hit my head, instead of taking the blow in the center of my brow, it would help disperse it across my head.
Okay.
Now, like I said, it's not a true prevention item, but it's definitely in the right steps and using
Sure.
technology to get to that point, hopefully.
Well, you look at the original days of boxing, bare knuckle boxing,
Yeah.
and look at the sports uniforms and like in the headgear in like days of Jim Thorpe and the folks way back in their early football. Just a little padding, and that was about it. So we've come a long way, but there's still more that could be done. I take it then.
Always.
There's a lot more that could be done in as far as the awareness, but also in understanding how the brain is damaged and how to compensate for that, I would think.
I wanted to make sure that we had covered this, the Southern Oregon veterans. I know you
Yes.
talked about them a little bit to do with the fact that they were also subject to concussion, and
Well, veterans.
that's
you say.
exactly what
Right.
happens over there.
One of the groups that I'm involved with is the Southern Oregon Veterans Benefit. And it is a smaller organization, but basically they're a nonprofit that provide funds to help make sure that veterans get what they need. They work a lot with veterans that are going to school that might need their books to be paid for, or someone who might need some additional health care coverage that they might not be receiving. But it is just kind of a general organization that helps out the Southern Oregon veterans.
Okay.
They have a huge event coming up. It will be on Memorial Weekend, which I believe is May 24th.
It's the last Monday of the month.
Yes, yes. They are doing a big golf tournament in addition to a concert and a big raffle. And so you can look them up online. I'm sure if you just type in Southern Oregon Veterans Benefit on a search engine that you would be able to find them. They also
Right.
are on a lot of the social media sites such as Facebook. And you can find information about them, but they're a great resource in providing different funds and tools to our veterans that are down in Southern Oregon.
So veterans down there that are hearing about it, well, hopefully even now, might be turned to it for
Yes.
help. Okay.
Yes.
How about in the north?
I'm not quite sure who is here in the northern. Since I am from Klamath, I do more work in the southern half on that realm.
That's right.
But my former Miss Oregon, Nicole Mead, her platform was the Yellow Ribbon Project, and she did a lot of work with veterans. And so I'm sure she would have much more information about that.
Well, for folks who may have tuned in late, we're talking with Miss Oregon 2013, who first talked a little bit about the issues involved around and how to become a Miss Oregon or a Miss USA or whatever. But now we're discussing her choice of they get a choice of some kind of issue that you want to. Not the only one that you're going to be dealing with, but you get a choice of some issues that you want to to advocate for.
Yes, I'll kind of restate that.
So I thought we'd go back over that
We call it
again.
the platform, and it's
Right.
basically a platform of volunteerism. I've been talking about the last couple minutes about my platform, which is brain injury awareness, but I have not had a chance to address our national and state platform. Our national platform is the Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and it is a private nonprofit organization that provides funds to various hospitals to supplement machinery, especially in the prenatal and the neonatal units. And so they provide additional funds for families with children battling cancer or any other pediatric illnesses, in addition to providing equipment. And so here in Oregon, we have 3 Children's Miracle Network hospitals. One of them is Rogue Regional Medical Center down in Medford area. We also have Dorenbeckers is another one, and Sacred Heart is our 3rd hospital. And so as a state title holder, and even at the local level, you are required to raise funds for the Children's Miracle Network in lieu of an entry fee. And this is just another way that the Miss America organization sets themselves apart from other pageant organizations. All about volunteering, and the Children's Miracle Network is a huge part of that.
Okay.
In addition, we have a state platform of the Red Cross. And what's interesting about Oregon,
Okay.
Red Cross is very much known for blood donor and making sure that you donate blood and the services that they provide. But they also do quite a bit of work with disaster preparedness. And so I'm a disaster assistant team member. And basically, we encourage people to be prepared for a disaster. It's simple.
Well,
but
all these fires that
Right.
we or
Ice
just one
storms.
after another.
Yes. We do shelters in place with the ice storms.
Yeah.
There are fires. Because Oregon has so many different climates, we also deal with tsunamis and earthquakes. And right now, of course, fire and ice have seem to be the 2 big ones since our state is in a drought / winter storm here. But working with the Red Cross is a great way. They provide tips and tools as far as how to be prepared. And I always recommend people to have some extra cash on hand, or have some extra food, or even a car kit, a backpack with an extra blanket in this winter weather. You never know when you might get stuck on the side of the road, or you might run into some icy conditions. So make sure you think twice before you hit the road, and make sure that you're putting yourself in a place to be successful.
Speaking of that, Red Cross is still right over here on Vancouver, I think. Is that right?
No idea.
They have offices all over the state.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to mention that because I was just sure there's a place on North Vancouver, and in case someone wants to donate blood.
Yes,
that
I
kind of
believe
thing.
so. I believe one of their centers is right over there, and they're pretty easy. Just www.redcross.org. You can find centers, you can find volunteer information, and especially in this winter weather, they're always looking for people to donate their time and their blood.
Team. Did you say team member? You
Yes.
Were, okay.
So it's the Disaster Assistance Team.
Okay.
And basically it's a group of volunteers within the Red Cross who will be the ones that report to different areas. So for example, if there's a house fire,
Okay.
they would send a team member or 2 to go and make sure that the family was taken care of. They could possibly respond on behalf of the media if someone needed if media was there and asking about the issue. They're just another representative of the community to make sure that our community is well taken care of.
So they seek the people out that have had a fire and say, okay, we're going to take care of you over here, or something like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I kind of always wondered how do they get in contact with each other? And then
They work very closely with our local officials, whether it be police officers, fire stations,
of
EMT.
course.
They all work, and I mean, of course, they can't get everyone, but the Red Cross does their best not only to help with national and international disasters, but to help in local communities as well.
Right. Okay.
Well, you know, I want to remind the viewers that if they didn't tune in during the first half, Allison was here speaking as the 2013 beauty queen, so to speak, for the Oregon and for Oregon itself. And she was here with the folks that are putting on the Portland at the Portland Expo Center, the Portland Road Show. Roadster Show, I should say, and we have this. And the reason I bring that up also is so we can let folks know that that's coming up on the March 14th, 15th, and 16th. But also, you talked a lot about community and talked about how the community, how the issue and the event was such a community event of all the different things that these good folks were doing, that we're making it a part of the Roadster Show. But at the same time, the same holds true for the whole the thing that you're doing there with the Miss Oregon.
Yes.
So there's so many different community things going on with that, as well as with the road show.
Right. So I'll talk a little bit about that. The Multnomah Hot Rod Council is one of Miss Oregon's biggest sponsors. In conjunction with Les Schwab Tire Center, we are so thankful for all that they do. And coming up here at March 14th, 15th, and 16th, they have the Portland Roadster Show is what they call it. And they bring in hundreds and hundreds of cars. They are also bringing in the 6 state title holders of the Northwest. So myself included and 5 others, we were all contestants at the Miss America competition last fall, and we will be here hanging out with all the car guys. And what's incredible about the Portland Roadster Show and what the Multnomah Hot Rod Council does in general, they're all about community and volunteerism. And so the money that will be raised from this Portland Roadster Show is not going to people in the sky. It's not filling deep pockets. It is going back into our communities, and we are so thankful. They work a lot with local high school programs, getting kids involved with car shows and car show culture, getting them working on machinery and really making them marketable for the job force. People who get involved, especially at the high school level, have a much higher chance of getting a job right out of high school.
That's right.
And so this Portland Roadster Show is a family event. Children 16 and under get in free. So we are really encouraging the whole community to come out. There will be vendors. There's a whole list of sponsors, but I know Les Schwab is one of my favorites. But it's just really an incredible, they're all volunteers, but they are putting on this big show to help the community and really just to have a good time.
And I was taken with how you spoke about the community during the segment before this one when you were on there with them. But also, it struck me hearing you speak about just the Miss America and the Miss Oregon and all that has a community thing of its own. Like you took on the issue of the concussion, but then other contestants and winners are taking on other issues. So you are working with the community as well as.
Oh yes, very much so. I mean, my job is to be a volunteer for the state for the year. I mean, I know multiple girls who have taken on platforms such as anti-bullying. There's a huge one affecting our youth, and something that's very good. Eating disorders, breast cancer awareness. There are so many issues that need to be addressed in our community, and I do my best to be a part of all of those issues.
Bullying, a big point.
Bullying is a big one. And I enjoy just talking to kids and high schoolers and hopefully inspiring them to be successful and to really work for their dreams. I speak at a lot of assemblies, hoping to inspire kids, regardless of whatever their home lives are, regardless of their circumstances, to really shoot for the stars. It's such a coined phrase, but it's true.
No, that's right.
I mean, there are so many opportunities, whether it be through charitable organizations or there are enough people who are willing to help. There's really no excuse to pursue your dreams and to do the best that they can. If people are interested in contacting me, I don't know if I can throw this out here.
Sure you can.
www.facebook.com/Miss Oregon 2013 Allison Cook. So it's my title, my name. It's a public page on Facebook, Miss Oregon 2013 Allison Cook. I post daily about what I'm doing. I post about the community events that I'm involved in. All of my contact information is there if people are interested in booking me for other appearances.
Yeah.
And I just want people to know, not only myself, but all the local title holders are working so hard to make our community and our state a better place. And so I like to show people just kind of what I'm up to and highlight some of what other girls are up to as well. Other social media handles that I'm involved with, Twitter and Instagram, at Miss OR 2013. For that younger generation, I just like to post that although we wear a crown and a sash, or we may be coined as beauty queens, we're here for the community. I get my education paid for to make a difference in the state, and I'm so honored to have this position for a year.
And now that you brought that out, there is among some circles and some perspectives a little bit of stigma with the whole beauty thing. You know, treating women like they're just so many commodities. But to hearing you talk, there's a whole lot more to it than that.
That's so much more.
You
You're
know,
talking about talent.
well, the talent and all that, but the thing that you're involved with, your reciprocal reaction with the community. It isn't just you stand up there and look pretty and you maybe can sing a song or play a fiddle or for whatever, but there's so much else you can do. And there's so much else that you do.
Right, and I really appreciate both of you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the community about this. I mean, it is very difficult to educate people if they're not willing to listen. And so thank you so much for providing me a way to talk to the community. I mean, I want to be reachable. I want to make a difference. And I know that our organization, that's what we're here for. We're here to pay for education. We're here to make the community a better place. And I was just fortunate enough to be the representative for this year.
Okay, right. No, that's great.
And I think you mentioned earlier that the 2012, 2011, the girls from the past continue their involvement.
Oh, yes. We even call them sisters. We call it the sisterhood. But really, the girls in this program are incredible. In pageantry, they talk so much about the negatives or the cattiness. I did not experience any of that. I mean, I will be sitting with 5 of my sisters, my Miss America sisters from different states. And even though we competed for the same end goal, they are just as driven and making just as much of a difference in their own state. So whether it be other state title holders, other local girls, or even former state title holders and former local girls, this program makes women successful. It gives them a platform to be involved in the community and really a way to make a difference. So it is so much more than wearing a crown, wearing a sash, and so much more than the televised competition.
When you go to a high school, do you end up before the whole student body, or?
It really depends. At the high school, I spoke at Centennial recently. I spoke to 300 of their freshman students, just talking about how to get involved. Coming up at the end of this month, I'll be speaking to the students in Yamhill, actually, and doing a presentation regarding Black History Month and making sure that we talk about different races and tolerance and becoming aware of different cultures. It depends on the appearance, but I could speak to 2 kids or I could speak to 3,000 kids. My goal is to change someone's life, and that's what I'm here for.
Before you got involved in the what you're doing right now, were you a public speaker, and did you learn as you went?
You know, I think I've always had a passion for talking to people.
I've heard her say something like, well, I got to talk to this big assembly and I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but she's going to go and she's not going to have any trouble at all. But
that's because you like people.
Anyway.
I do. I care about people, I love people, and I love our community.
Okay. I thank you very much for being on our show. We are out of time, and I want to take this time to thank our crew who can't do the show without the crew. We really... I know, because I've had to turn around and go home.
We've had to try. That's right.
And so I appreciate the crew and the previous guests that we've had to do the Portland Roadster Show.
Right.
And that's it, Portland Roadster Show at the Expo Center, March 14th, 15th, and 16th. We'll just try to make sure everybody knows about that. So we want to thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll
Thanks
see
for
you again
watching.
next month.
Yeah.
Good night for now.
Yeah.